Do you ever sometimes just look at an empty bowl and wish you could just go and have something delicious magically appear? I can't teach you magic, but I can teach you how to make mock chicken, and it's magically delicious. Hi, I'm Dan, I'm Dad, and I'm finally back in the kitchen. Okay, for this recipe you're going to need 2 large onions, 3 medium tomatoes, quarter teaspoon black pepper, half teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of mixed herbs, 20 grams of unsalted butter, 150 grams of grated tasty cheese, and 1 large egg. I've used a half teaspoon of salt in this recipe. Adjust the seasoning to your taste. It's just what I was comfortable with. The mixed herbs I just bought off the shelf from the supermarket. I have heard it also called Italian herbs. Same thing. Okay, for this recipe it's low and slow. So on a low to medium heat you're going to heat a heavy bottom pan and melt the butter. And to the butter you're going to add the onions, and then they're just going to cook slowly. You want them to release their juices, cook them down, build up the flavor base, and you're just going to just continually move them around so they don't stick, and they soften up. They get a little bit of a golden color to them, and then in the end there's a little bit of brown color starting to form on the bottom of the pan. And all up, this took about 5.5, maybe 6 minutes. Might have even been a little bit more. You really don't want to rush this. You don't want to overcook the onions. And then once the onions are done, you're going to do the same thing with the tomatoes. The tomatoes have been peeled, they've been diced, the seeds and the juice are all in there, and you can use whatever your favorite tomato is. Just if they're in season, they're going to give you a better flavor. So stir them throughout the onions, and then you're going to cook them down low and slow. The juice is going to come out, you're going to cook them down, the flavors are going to intensify, and then when they're loosened up and softened up and become one with the onion, then it's time to add the seasonings and the herbs. I used 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I don't like cooking with too much salt because I think we get too much in our diets. Personal preference, you season how it's right for you. Then again with the mixed herbs, I've just sprinkled them in the top. You're going to mix that evenly throughout the tomato and onion mixture, and you're just going to keep this moving around until the herbs become aromatic. And it really doesn't take long. It took about maybe a minute. I haven't sped this part up. And but just evenly distribute them throughout the tomato and onions. Now give the eggs a real good fondant and make sure they're well beat so that it'll pour evenly over the top of the tomato and onion mixture, because with the heat of the pan, the tomato and the onions, the eggs are going to cook fairly quickly, and you don't want it to cook on top. You actually want it to cook into the tomato and onions so it's dispersed evenly. It's part of the binding agent, and you really don't want clumps of scrambled egg in your tomato and onion. And it literally took 10 seconds to stir in, and so it cooks quickly. So from here, turn the heat off. If you're cooking on an electric cooktop, move your pan off the hot element and just use the residual heat that's left in the pan and in the tomato and onions to melt the cheese and stir it evenly throughout the mixture. And it really won't take long, maybe a minute or two, but the thing is, get it evenly mixed through, because this is what holds it together. And I appreciate that it doesn't look very attractive. If you're going to store it in a plastic container, make sure you let it cool down in the pan that you cooked it. I'm using a heat-proof glass bowl, so I was able to tip it straight from the pan into the bowl. Let it sit in the fridge for 24 hours, and then it's just a perfect thing to have for it on a biscuit. Use it like a dip. Put it in a sandwich. Use it as a sandwich filling like we did when we were kids at school. Mum used to make it for a treat. Have it with a salad as a light lunch. It's delicious. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan, I'm Dad in the kitchen, and I'll see you next time. Miss me.